Guys, it's Em and Sunny. So, we got my whole solar setup all working today. I'm really excited. For a while I thought my solar panel wasn't working, but it turns out it was just one of these connectors right here. So I'm going to show you guys the whole setup and how I have it all done. And we're gonna go ahead and... Alright, so my solar panel is one that I just pull out. It's a King Solar 120 watt flexible panel with like I think I would say a 30-degree flex. I have it covered right now just to show you guys what it's like with, there's not a ton of sun, but it still works a little bit. But yeah, I can just close this because there's a gasket, so I can just close it over it. So I can leave it outside with my hatch closed if I want. The reason I have it removable is because I don't want it to get stolen, and I don't really want to like permanently attach it to anything. I can put it up on my roof racks. I'm just using these bungee cords basically, which work really well. I can put it on the back, on any side I want, on the top, whatever I want to do. So first I'll show you guys, this is a mess because I've been doing this for like hours. First I want to show you guys, this is my little cabinet that I built to accommodate all of my electrical stuff. There's a shelf that goes right here that I took out right now. I have two batteries. Each battery is a 6-volt battery. They're hooked up in series. That means the positive terminal of this battery and the negative terminal of this battery are hooked up to make it into one 12-volt battery. These are lead acid batteries, and they're not lithium ion, so they are really heavy. Each one weighs 70 pounds. That said, they're specifically made for solar. They're by Trojan. They're their RE series or SPRE or something like that. They changed the name. So they're 225 amp hours. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know exactly what that means yet, but I've heard that it's good, and so I'm sure I'll figure it out as I start to use it and kind of get a feel for everything. So basically the positive and negative terminals on this side are really connected, so that makes it one battery. That means that my leftover positive terminal and my leftover negative terminal on the other batteries are what I'm using as my only terminals. So basically these terminals no longer exist for me hooking things up because they're just connected to make this into a 12-volt battery so that this whole thing is a 12-volt system. Alright, starting at the positive terminal of my battery, and I'm just going to reference it as one battery for exactly the reason I just told you guys. So the positive terminal of my battery, this is a 6-gauge wire. It just goes from the positive terminal up to this marine switch. Now, this is just so that I can turn off everything connected to the battery and just have a power off switch. As you can see, it's disconnected right now. My charge controller's also off because my panel is covered up so it's not charging it, and the battery is disconnected. And also my little meter thing, you'll see what that is. Everything is just off right now, all of my stuff. So next, what's connected to that off of this terminal switch is all of my positives come off of this switch right here. So this switch has essentially become my positive terminal, except for I can turn it on and off. So it's just one positive 6-gauge and then another positive 6-gauge and then any other wires that I need coming out of here. So I'm gonna go uncover the panel now. So if I go back out here and we take this curtain off of the panel, you can see what it looks like. I have heard mixed things about this panel. We'll see how it does. Alright, so now if we come back here, we can see that there's something going on here. So this is the charge controller. This charge controller is connected to the panel and it's connected to the battery. All it's doing is taking the energy from the panel and controlling it as it goes into the battery. It's not connected to anything else. So right now, it's showing me that the battery is dead because it doesn't sense any energy coming from the battery. So now I'm gonna turn on my switch. Okay, so turning that on, we can see this thing, this charge controller starting up. So now it's showing me a few things. It's showing me the battery's voltage, a new battery. The solar panel is on and charging. You can see the charging status is that the battery, that it's currently charging the battery, and that the battery is not fully charged. Okay, so that's the charge controller. Now that everything's on, so there's, you know, electricity flowing through these positives. So the main positive right here is this 6-gauge wire. This 6-gauge wire is hooked up to my fuse box right here. I just have a piece of tape over it because the open terminal kind of stresses me out. But so that's just a positive wire going there. Now this fuse box has some fuses in it. And so this is in my, so basically the fuses will help if there's, you know, again, I'm not an electrician, but I know that the fuses are important to prevent your electronics from, you know, getting ruined. Basically, if something happens, if something goes wrong, it's going to go wrong right here. A little light will pop up and I'll just replace one of these fuses. Off of the fuses is where all my positive wires go. So this wire is a positive wire going to this USB charger. And this cabinet isn't done yet, so, but this is hooked up. So I can plug my phone in or whatever I want in, and that will work. So this is basically, all of the positives are pretty much gonna come off of this fuse right here. The other wire I have is this wire, which is the charge controller. So that's just going back to this guy that we were talking about, connecting him to the battery. The third little tiny wire down here, and this is an 18-gauge wire for my USB charger. This wire right here, I believe, is a 12-gauge wire. It came with the charge controller. That's why I'm using it. This little guy right here, this is, I think, a 24-gauge wire, just a really little one. This wire is, again, red for positive. It's running through this hole that I drilled and up through to this guy. What this is basically a little kind of control station, or just, it's showing me basically my battery voltage, you know, energy I'm using. So like if I plug something into this, that amps will jump up. Again, I think I'm going to learn, part of why I got this, it's not necessary at all, but part of why I got it is to get a better understanding of what, you know, volts, amps, watts, watt hours, what all of it means, and being able to watch things happen, I think will give me a better understanding of what all these numbers are, and what I might want to change in the future. So that's all of the positive wires I have for that. That's it. Now, if we go over to this negative terminal, let me see if I can shine a light on it with this. You'll notice that there's this black thing. This black thing is called a shunt, and it's what came with that little, it's what came with this. So the shunt is of a known, I forget what exactly, a known resistance and a known like density or something like that. And so it's allowing that meter to have exact measurements of things. So in order for all of the circuit to be going through the shunt, basically, again, this is kind of like the switch. It's just extending my terminal over here. These little wires go back up to that. So those little wires go back up to here. And then there's another little wire that you can see, that white wire, that goes up there as well. And then now it gets a little messy looking, but if you see that yellow terminal piece, that's just the negative that goes up to the charge controller. And then there's one last piece of wire. Again, it's a 12-gauge wire, and that's going to my terminal block. Now this is just basically connecting to the negative, and it's kind of like the opposite of the fuse. I mean, it's not doing the same role as a fuse, but it's just basically making it so I don't have to run every single wire back to my negative terminal. I can just attach them all here and then run that to my negative terminal. And that is everything for the direct current power system. Also, known as the DC power system. So DC, everything in DC for mine is going to be just the 12 volt system, so I have to make sure all my appliances that are connected through here are direct current 12 volt appliances. Now, for AC, or alternating current, what you need is an inverter. I have a 500 watt inverter, so I have to make sure that anything I hook up to this is not going to be pulling more than that. It does have a surge power of up to 1,000 watts, but yeah, 500 watts, I don't want to go over that. So basically this hooks up to my DC, and it came with these alligator clips, which I am just using. The negative one is permanently just clipped to the negative terminal. For the positive one, I have this little holder right here. If I don't need it connected, I don't have to connect it. And then if I want to connect it, I can just alligator clip it on here, and that's a good sturdy connection. And then if I look at the actual inverter, it has its own on switch, and off switch. Now it also has a USB port and 2 outlets, and now these are just your typical 110 outlets for American plugs. The USB port, I have a DC one because the inverter is you're losing power by inverting the power, so it's better to hook up things DC. But my computer charger, for example, I didn't find a DC computer charger that was really, affordable or easy to get, it seemed, so I can just hook it up here on this normal outlet. And that is everything there is really to my setup. It's complete, and my solar panel is working, and I'm really excited because I have power. And Sunny is just napping. She's really tired of my kids. Alright, I hope this helps anyone who is setting up their own system. And if you have any questions, feel free to message me, although I have a very basic understanding of this. I'm really just grateful to have put everything together. I tried to stay safe by using terminals and electrical tape on things, and connecting things well so that everything is really solid, because in a van I'm dealing with a lot of vibration. That's part of why I have this disconnected, and the on-off switch. If you see anything jarringly dangerous, please let me know, but hopefully most of this is pretty good.